republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thanks everybody for coming to the Hubbard County Truth and Taxation Meeting. We all did a lot of our work, so we'll let the Administrator and Kay, the Auditor, do the explaining then.
Well, thank you. I am Kay Rave, Auditor Treasurer for Hubbard County, and good evening and welcome to tonight's Truth and Taxation Meeting. The TnT is a process first enacted by the legislature in 1988 to enhance public participation in Minnesota's property tax system. The TnT process consists of three components. Each local government is required to formally adopt a proposed levy, and our local Board of Commissioners adopted the proposed levy on September 19, and that levy amount was $20,400,000. We then sent out proposed notices, which you would have received right around Thanksgiving. And each local government is then required to hold a public meeting after the notices come out where budget and tax issues are discussed and where public testimony is allowed prior to adopting the final levy. At this meeting tonight, County Administrator Jeff Cadwell will present information about the proposed 24 county budget and levy. We will answer specific questions about the proposed budget and levy. We will not discuss property values at this meeting. The opportunity to address valuation concerns is in the spring at your local Board of Appeal and Equalization meetings and at the County Board of Appeal and Equalization meetings. These meetings are held in May and June. If you have specific questions about your valuation or property information, please contact the Property Records Office. So the whole process for setting the levy begins with this budget, which starts in the spring of '24, and Jeff has the budget schedule here. Managers are to notify the HR director of any changes, new positions, or reductions by June 9th. And budget worksheets are distributed to department heads by July 12th. Budget and grants are returned to me for entry into IFS by July 21st. IFS is our finance system. Complete detail is given to the commissioners at the board meeting on August 1st. And at the board work session on August 8th are the beginning of the budget discussions. These continue through September, and on September 19th, as I said earlier, is when the preliminary budget was set. Budget is fine-tuned through October, and that leads us to tonight's TnT meeting. Next Tuesday, December 19th, is when the board will set or approve the final levy. And that leads me to you,
Yep.
Jeff.
Yep, thank you, Kay. So one comment, we can't really discuss or deal with values at this meeting, but our property records assessor's office staff are here tonight, and they can answer simple questions, or they can schedule appointments to talk to you if you have concerns or questions about your values. But the period to deal with value adjustments is actually in the spring of the year. So this meeting, we're going to talk about the proposed budget and the proposed levy. If you have questions simply about your valuation, the staff is on the second floor and can answer some of your questions.
You're there now?
Yes. Yep, they're downstairs now, and they can answer simple questions or set appointments. They'll be here until this meeting is over too.
Thank you.
So just a little bit of background. In the first 4 bullet points here are from last year's numbers. They will only have increased or have improved to the benefit of Hubbard County. In 2022, certified levy per capita among the 87 Minnesota counties ranged from 329 to 1,964, with a median of 782 and an average of 805. Hubbard County's levy per capita is at 752, which is 48 out of 87, so below the median for counties. In 2022, the number of county employees per 1,000 population ranged from 4.91 to 23.34, with a median of 9.24. Hubbard County had 11.14 employees per 1,000 population. Those are just kind of scale statistics that demonstrate that that Hubbard County is as efficient, or almost as efficient as any outstate county. The counties with the lower levies are the ones with the more dense populations. And obviously, if you have a more dense population, your levy per capita is less, and your number of employees per capita is less. So for outstate, Hubbard County runs very efficiently. The 2023 county tax rate was at 33.3%, the 18th lowest in the state. And the proposed tax rate is 31.2. Was that based off of the 20.4 or the current 20.2?
The 31.2 is the current 2024 proposed rate.
Is it the 20.2 million, the current, or the
It's-
20.4 proposed in
It's
September?
20.4.
Okay, so that 31.2 is actually already lower because the levy that your statements that you have in hand was calculated, the proposed levy was 20.4 million, and we've already whittled that down to 20.2 million. So that tax rate will actually come down. So this is a general summary of the expenses, revenues, and levy proposed for 2024. There's a couple of items that are of interest on this page. One is that for the first time, we're showing the line items for the Heritage Living Center on the expenditures and revenues. Those have always been reported in the county Heritage Living Center, yeah?
Can you make that larger?
I don't know if I can.
Do you have that as a handout?
I can make handouts, or it is available for download on the county website. But if you want a copy, I can get you a copy after the meeting.
Jeff, there's another screen behind you there.
Yeah, these spreadsheets don't show up here very well. I apologize for that. So the Heritage Living Center is a little over an $8 million a year operation. It's operated as an enterprise fund of the county. That's obviously the nursing home and the other facilities there. They've always shown up on the county tax state, or on the county financial reports and the audit reports, because it's part of the entire county operation. So here I'm showing it in the levy summary. It does not affect the levy. You can see under the line 2024 proposed levy, there's no levy to support that. That operation is intended to be self-sufficient. So we're showing a balanced budget of $61 million of expenses and $61 million worth of revenues. Revenues are a combination of revenues from other sources at $39.6 million, use of fund balance at $1.4 million, and a proposed levy of $20.2 million. And here's kind of a breakdown just of the expenses, revenue, and proposed levy. 2024 expenditures, 20% for general, which is all the departments, from the auditor's office to the veteran service office, that aren't otherwise listed separately here. Public safety includes the sheriff's office and the jail operations at 17%. The highway is at 25%. That number for the highway obviously varies from year to year. Certain years we get federal grants and do federal projects, so the project budget for the highway can vary from $1 million or $2 million to $8 or $10 million, which really doesn't affect the levy because those projects are usually funded. Human services is at 19%, solid waste is at 10%, natural resource management is 4%, debt service is 2%, and capital reserves are at 3% of the total expenditures. On the other, this is the other revenue, so this is the $39 million. 25%, 23% comes in to support general operations. That includes things like general program aid that comes directly to counties from the state, other categorical aid that we receive. Public safety is relatively unfunded. That's why the impact on the levy is significant. There aren't very many direct sources of funding for the sheriff's office and for corrections. You can see the highway department brings in a good amount of funding related to their expenditures. Human services is largely funded through state and federal block grants. Solid waste generates revenues from tipping fees. And, solid waste doesn't get a levy. They have the allocation, or the solid waste assessment that you pay separately on your form.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what percentage of the human services budget is funded by the county?
If you'll,
Just,
yep, in this line, there's $9.9 million of expenses, 6.3 of other revenues, and 3.025 of levy. So about a third. And then 6% of the revenues come in from natural resource management. And then here's, if you take the expenses, the programs that bring in other revenue, primarily the deficit between the other revenue and the expenses is made up by the levy. 17% of every tax dollar you pay to the county goes for general operations of administrative services, building maintenance, auditor, recorder, treasurer, veteran service, all those general offices. 39 cents of every dollar goes to public safety for the sheriff's department and to operate the jail. 17% goes to the highway. That primarily pays for the things that aren't covered. Like I said, the projects are largely covered by state or federal grants. We get a good amount of money and collect that 50 cent sales tax for road improvements that goes to general maintenance in the summer and snow plowing in the winter. Human services accounts for 15% of the levy, debt service is 4%, and capital reserves is 8%. And here's a levy history from 2017 to 24. 2023 was the first time we captured the capital reserves. That came from Enbridge investment in 2021 and 22 that was first realized in 23. That capture was $1.6 million. In 2023, Enbridge's taxes went up by $1.7 million. So that additional tax that we collected that year has been and will continue to be paid directly by the Enbridge improvements. For those that don't know, the old pipeline used to run through the northeast corner of the county, about 5 or 6 miles. Now it runs north and south all the way down the west border and all the way across the southern border. There's about 60 miles of pipeline. There's about a $300 million investment. So they are funding the capital reserves that will help to offset future tax impacts from needed capital projects. So you can see those in 23 and 24 are both included. The average tax rate increase over those years, including the couple of years during COVID where there was a 0% increase, is 5% annually. One piece that I want to back up and mention about that is the levy primarily supports the employees for the county. In 2018, the levy paid 87% of the wages, taxes, and benefits for the employees. And in 2024, the levy pays 77% of the wages and taxes for the employees that provide the services. And that number's kind of concerning, but it's also why that number goes up every year, because the cost of employees goes up every year. This is just kind of perspective. The blue bars are the tax capacity that has increased significantly. You can see the big jump from 22 to 23, and that was, half of that was Enbridge, and the other half was the market increases that we saw from 22 to 23. And then you can see the jump from 23 to 24. We continue to see a significant market increase this year. Hopefully that looks like it's flattening out for next year. But you can see the line for the levy is not going up at the same rate as the market is going up, which is primarily the driver why the tax rate, this gray line at the top, is going down. So just from that perspective. Just a couple of instances of how that market rate to the levy to the tax rate have an impact. I just pulled a half dozen properties, and these are all in Henrietta Township. And I pulled those because that's where I live. And you have to compare within one local taxing authority to get any significant comparison. So in 23 to 24, this home went from 602 to 741,000. The market value increased by 23%, but because of the reduction in the tax rate by 2%, which is going to go down more, the taxes didn't increase at 23%, they increased at 8%, 8.6. This home at 250,000 went to 255. The market value went up 2.4%, which is less than the tax increase. So their taxes are actually going to go down. So much like last year, the homes at the higher value, a 10% increase on market on $600,000 is more than a 10% increase on market in $200,000. And the market has continued to hit the higher valued homes more because they're in demand than the lower valued homes. So the average increase in county taxes is approximately 5% in this group, which is just under the proposed taxing or levy increase now at $20.2 thousand is 5.8%. A significant shift is going to happen this year to bare land and take some of the shift away from properties, because now that there aren't properties available for sale, people are buying up land like crazy and paying a large price for that. When the board got an update on sales study from this year from the assessor's office, that was the biggest mover is bare land sales. Bare land is going for way more than market value in this past year. One other thing that I wanted to pull up, this is going to probably be hard to see, but this one I think I can make bigger. This is obviously a tax statement, and your 23 value is there, your 24 value is there, any adjustment relative to the exclusion. I think that number tops out at $400,000 or $430,000, so after that, that goes away. Mm-hmm. The important thing to know is all of the different taxing entities, and I think most people do, Hubbard County portion of the tax on this home is $860, Henrietta Township is $246, and then the school districts, general levy and the voter-approved levies are both assessed because this is a residential property. Any other special taxing districts would also be listed here. So we're here tonight talking about the county proposed tax and levy, and all of these other all these other taxing entities have also had their opportunity for you to speak to them. So that is truly what we have to present relative to the budget and the anticipated impacts of that. And now is your opportunity to ask questions of myself or the board about the proposed budget or levy.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Can you show me the chart again of the history of what the levy has done over the years?
Yes.
It was a blue and brown post.
Well, this was the levy history, and then this next one is the tax rate. This is the market, estimated market value versus the levy. The estimated market value is blue. That's the estimated market value of the county. And that gray line is really showing the inverse proportion to the market values going up faster than the levy, which is good.
And I'm not trying to ask about my own situation.
Yep.
I'm asking about the process. Because what I've seen is a massive correction in 19 and coming in 24. And I agree with you. I can see where the market value has gone up and the tax rate has been very reasonable in between. But in 19 and the proposal in 24 is off the charts. Is that a process issue, or what's causing that?
Which specific numbers?
Well, no,
Yeah, I'm hearing a question. Which part of the process do you think, or where was there a correction to the market, to the real estate market?
yeah, I have no idea what caused it.
Yep.
When your property values increase dramatically and your tax rate stayed reasonable, but in 20, 21, 22, and 23, that was the case. But in 19, the tax rate, in my situation, spiked, and it's spiking again in 24. So to me, that's, what's causing that within the taxation process? Because
Without this is representative only of the county taxing process. So I know that some significant school referendums are being applied in the last couple of years.
I did not look at that, so I will.
So I'm guessing that when I look at this from 21 to 24, the tax rate has declined. So the impact to the county tax should have been moderated relative to the value increasing. But those referendums that have been approved specifically in
Fardin and Wadena.
Hmm?
Fardin and Monaga.
in
School
in
District.
Cass Lake,
Oh, Fardin Township, Cass Lake and
Cass
Monaga.
Lake, Vina, Monaga? Okay.
But I will look
Those-
at that, because I did not look at it, I just looked at the
Yep.
total.
Yeah, take a look at the breakdown on those things, and if you do have questions specifically about tax rate that were affecting yours, Kay's happy to answer questions about that on the phone. Unless there was a significant value adjustment to an individual property.
Just by way of information, if you happen to live in town.
No, I live in Rockwood Township. on West Washington.
If you happen to live in town, I'm sorry.
He's 031. He's Bemidji.
Okay.
Or Bill.
I would like to discuss the Cass Lake being a school situation. I'm Linda Tran, Kay and I spoke on the phone, and we've gone through this. And for those who are here, there was an error made back in March when the property tax statements for 2023 were sent out. The error was known, and they were mailed out anyway, is my understanding.
The error was found out after the statements were sent.
Okay, I'll stand corrected on that. But there was no correction sent, and there was no notification that there was an error made on those tax statements.
We were not allowed to correct due to the to the state.
Let her go ahead and finish,
Can I
and then you can
Sure.
explain.
Go ahead.
And I'll stand up here. So, the error was known about back in March, and April. The statements were mailed out. And I understand the state was contacted, and they said they had to correct it in 2024. My personal, tax statement on this, I mean, the error, on 2 of my 10 parcels, resulted in an overtaxation of over $800 on 2 of my 10 parcels. That was overtaxed. The correction that was made on the proposed tax statement actually applied the tax rate for the Cass Lake being a school to the 2024 value of my property instead of the 2023 value, which is what resulted in this. So the correction to the error, and I will never say errors, errors happen and anything, and in my belief, It's how you correct those errors and how you own up to them. That is important, because if an error happens, let's make sure people know about it. People who have received these tax statements and have their taxes going up, not only it was because they did not collect the correct amount for the Catholic Mina School District, which had a significant levy, voter-approved levy went through. My taxes are going up $4,000 just because of my school tax, but they're doubling up on that over a 2-year period in one tax year, because they didn't bill us for them in 2023. So now we're gonna be billed on that. So people who have escrow accounts and their banks are getting these notices saying, hey, this tax is going up $4,000, those payments are gonna go up significantly for people. People are gonna be hurting. Are they gonna pay my property tax, or when my food and clothing for my children? And there was no notice sent out to people who live in Farden and Hubbard Township that were affected by this. Nothing was put in. I understand it was put in the paper, it was put in the Park Office paper, and I'm sorry, but nobody in Farden Township, gets the Park Office paper. It's not a local paper up there. But we are very heavily affected by this. I've talked to Kay, after several conversations, and conversations with the state, and I know they have a plan, and I want it to go on record here that these taxes are actually going to be calculated on the 2023 values, not on 2024 values. I actually built a house during this time, so on one of my parcels, instead of being taxed on a $34,000 land, I was taxed on a $319,000 house. I should not pay tax on a $300,000 house that didn't even exist during the taxing period of this tax time. So I understand that you are going to now go back and recalculate those using the 2023 values as appropriate and apply it to it. And I want it on record that that is gonna happen. And I really want people who are affected by this to be notified, because I think a lot of people still don't know what happened and what was going on here. And this was a massive, I own 10 parcels of property in Hubbard County, and my taxes went from about $7,000 to $17,000 in one. That's the proposed taxes that I have here. And most of it is not Hubbard County, and I know that you're here for it's Catholic School District, which is another issue, but you guys are responsible for collecting those taxes. And the amount that the Catholic School District should be based on our 2023 values, not our 2024 values. So, thank you very much.
So you're absolutely correct. And what I will say is that the correction has been made so that your 24 taxes will be calculated on your 23 value, and the makeup from 22 to 23 will actually show up here as another line. And it will be based on that 22 value for payable and 23 for making up. What was the name of that line?
2023 school tax correction.
But we won't know what that is until May. Or April.
As soon as those are run, have they been uploaded to the website yet?
No.
Okay, they won't go out until the tax statements go out. So yeah, the article's been run, or has been shared with the Park Rapids paper and the Nevis paper, and I know that doesn't get up to that corner up there. And it's on the county website, which is not necessarily the first place people look for information,
I
but.
looked at the county website when I walked in here under the news items, and there's nothing on the news
Okay.
county website.
But you're right, and your specific instance where you built a home from one year to the next and your value went up by, how many percent? That's probably the most significant impact that we saw was when somebody had bare land and then was taxed at a full value of a home. So, and that specific example is why we realized that we had to make a change, so.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
So, I agree with you. We should have contacted. We should have contacted each one of you with a letter. And,
It's not too late, because people still don't know what's happening.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I understand what the estimated value is down on the second floor. I need to go down and talk to them.
If you want to talk about your value or set up an appointment to talk about that, then yes, down in the assess.
Down there.
Yep, down at the second floor, there are staff here that can answer your questions or schedule an appointment.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
And I I just have a process question again, because I am a Rockwood Township Supervisor, and we went through this interesting experience at our Board of Equalization meetings due to the conversion and errors and this and that. And I've talked to Maria, I think, a couple of times. And my mission is to be better informed, because at this point in time, I feel there's gonna be a lot more people at that meeting come March. So I would like to be prepared, and one of the things that just happened is, because I called Marie when the correction came out, and my comment was, you shouldn't have wasted the 55 cents postage. Then we just got the abatement letter, and mine sent back in personally. But from that process, I found it interesting that you have to sign and put your social security number on a form, because the Minnesota Department of Revenue says you have to. But I pay taxes, they have my social security number, and you don't get the abatement unless you send back the form. When something's wrong, you just fix it for everybody, not fix it for those, because unless we're playing the gift card game, that 20% of the people will miss it and they'll pay more. And from a process, I think that's wrong. I think we should have got a note that said, your taxes, you received an abatement to this, and everybody got it. If it's wrong, it should be fixed for everybody, not the 80% who sent their form back. So that's a pure process thing. So I would just throw that out for you to consider. And I assume that this body has some oversight of this kind of stuff. Who does?
They do have an ability to appeal the legislators the same way that you would, because that is just a mandated state requirement. That's not an internal process to require the abatement form. And I appreciate it, that is frustrating, but that's something that would have to be changed legislatively for us to have the flexibility to do that.
I think you're right though, Paul.
Yeah, we all agree with you. Yeah.
That's it. Well, thank you for informing me, because I can, even though, I think it's not right, at least I can sit in front of the people who come and ask me about it and make that statement, because I didn't know that, so.
I would very much think that it would be helpful to have Maria attend a township association meeting after the first of the year before we get to local board of appeal, and just talk through some of those things with all the supervisors and be available to answer some of those questions, because I think a conversation with that group of people would be really helpful ahead of the local boards. She wanted to do that too.
Hey, I had a nice conversation at the meetings, and I've talked to her a couple times on the phone. I'll probably stop down on the second floor, and I have a couple more questions that you made it clear we should ask down there, not here, so I'm trying to.
Jeff, did you have a question?
I do, but it's a little different directions back towards the budget, so if you've got more of the taxation part,
Okay.
I'm willing to delay.
Was everyone affected by that abatement process? Because I've talked to some of my neighbors and they never got any notification. But I did.
Everyone who had, what ended up happening is that there was a calculation relative to the square footage and the value applied based on the square footage for some of the larger or the smaller homes. So the calculation was corrected, and those people who had a calculation corrected because of that mechanical function were all notified. So if people didn't receive that, then they probably have a square footage that fell outside of that, or it didn't impact their properties. It didn't impact all of them, but the pattern was that it impacted and I can't remember specifically what it was, but I know that it was either large homes or small homes, and the calculation in the old system had applied a discount based on the number of square footage, because otherwise it got skewed, and that discount ended up not getting transferred into the new system. So those values got skewed out of touch. So everybody who was affected by that calculation received at least one letter from the assessor's office.
And my interpretation of reading that 3 times was, yeah, that homes that have lower levels, square footage, and upper level square footage, not just main floor, that the per square foot rate on the upper and the lower is discounted. So if you if, in my case, I have a 2-story, so that,
One of the discounts they used in their calculation prior to last year didn't go into the new system, and it inflated values. And everybody that was affected by that did receive notice. She would rather have fixed it.
Just out of curiosity, is this a state mandated system, or is it come from the state of Minnesota, or is it bought from?
That's a great question. I really do appreciate it. It is a state recommended system. It is bought through a cooperative purchasing program that the counties all work through, Minnesota Computer Consortium. So they have a contract with the state of Minnesota to provide those services to us, and they're one of 2 or 3 vendors that are available to do that. So,
It's hard not to be cynical, isn't it? It's hard not to be cynical.
Just out of
you know,
curiosity.
what I will do is I will ask Maria and her staff to see of the people who qualified for the abatement, who's applied for it, and see if we can send another round of letters out, because that's at least the thing we can do. If people missed a letter, if people didn't know what to do with it, we can send another round.
You could have included an envelope with a stamp on it.
We certainly could.
For elections.
You know,
Yep,
We have to.
You're putting the burden all on the taxpayer
yep.
to fix a problem that the county didn't do right, you know? And I agree with you, there's gonna be a good percentage of people that either didn't get the letter, or don't know what to do with it, or they lost it, they're not gonna send it back in, and the county makes more money.
well, I would just say that I have personally been through a significant amount of major computer conversions, and this provider did not do you guys any favor, did not do the county any favor. To have this kind of massive errors in a computer conversion is not acceptable. And like I said, long time ago when I was working, I've been through at least 5 or 6 major computer conversions with a company of significant size, 100 to 200 million. And you just you just have to run the side-by-sides, and you just can't bank on it. And even when you do all that stuff, the day you flip the switch, you still just cringe, and something always goes. But so I can be empathetic, but I'll also I hope that, somebody's holding them a little bit accountable.
We are working through a lot of things right now, and I think they've stepped to the plate after that. One correction I would make is the county doesn't make more money because those mistakes were made. We're still collecting the same levy. It just means that person whose abatement, they're gonna pay a bigger share than they should have, someone else is gonna pay a smaller share. When property taxes go up, we don't collect more. When the board certifies for a levy on Tuesday, if they certify the 20.2 million, that's what we're gonna collect. It's just applied to properties based on their value and the formulas that the state comes up with. So when your value goes up and your taxes go up, we're not collecting more. That's why the tax rate goes down as values go up. In that case, if your value went up more than it should have and it didn't get corrected, you would pay more than your share and somebody else would pay less, because we'd still only collect the 20.2. So I know that comes up all the time. What do you do with the extra money? There isn't extra money. We get what we certify for. So But from your perspective, you're paying more than you should have in that case. Yes, I,
Send your neighbor, thank you.
Yes.
May I ask, how is the value of your property calculated? That might be, I guess I'm naive or don't understand it, because, I mean, I saw 27% increase. I just, have I been laying in the weeds that long?
there were classes of properties this year that saw generally 27% increase. Your property, is it Lakeshore?
Yep.
Okay, so your property gets a value for the land it's sitting on, for the buildings that you have, the improvements that you have, and an assessment of the personal property as a percentage of that. And then if you're on Lakeshore, then an assessment for the frontage of your Lakeshore. So those components all go into play. Your local appraisers look at that, look at the conditions, look at the square footage. What they want to make sure is that they have the square footages correct, that they have the conditions correct. Because if you've got a brand-new custom-built home of the highest quality, it's going to have a condition factor of 10. If you have a 40-year-old split level like I do, it's going to have a lower condition level, right? So all of those things factor into that to calculate what the value of that is. And then the other things that affect it are your neighborhood. So in this county, most of the recreational lakes are their own neighborhood. And if market prices are going up faster on Sand Lake or Beltane or another lake like that, that neighborhood can get a 5, 10, 15% adjustment.
That's great to know.
So there's 5 or 6 different, and if you, absolutely sincerely, if you have questions about how that was, the staff downstairs would love to walk through that with you to make sure that they've got the right information. Local assessors are supposed to physically view properties once every 5 years, more often if permits are pulled. I'm not saying don't pull permits, but also let the local appraisers in so they can see the condition and make sure they get it right. One of the biggest corrections we get is somebody looks like they have a 1.5 story or a 2 story, and all they have is a little bit of storage upstairs, so they're getting charged for 500 square feet that's not actually livable. And that's the easiest thing to correct if somebody just has a chance to look at it and change that on the platform.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Sandy, on the lake that you live on, there was actually 11 sales.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It
No,
was
when-
crazy.
Yeah, when he
Yeah.
said the neighborhood, I knew exactly
Yeah.
what he was talking about.
Because Maria
Thanks.
brought that up, because that's so unusual for that lake.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This
Hopefully,
gentleman
we're
in the-
towards the end of it here.
What about the commercials? We haven't had any changes to the building, nothing has changed, I don't think there was much of a sales in our area, but I have a almost 53% increase.
yeah, and I listened to this meeting last year that we did, and through COVID and into last year, commercial sales were really held down, and then boom, last year, they really went through the roof. So, there ended up having to be a makeup. Is the property in town here?
Close to Walmart.
Okay. If you have questions, please, specific questions, call and ask. But I do know that, and my wife owns a business in town and just bought a building, and it went up 30%. And it's hard to take in 1 year, but I would have to admit that it was undervalued when we purchased it. We purchased it for 50% more than it was valued at, and now it's valued a little bit more than we purchased it for. And I'd have to ask myself, what would I expect? We were willing to pay more than assessed value for it, because that was our value, and everybody else was doing the same, and that's driven it up for the people, even the ones who haven't transferred their building. But if you do have specific questions, it'd be great to get a hold of the office downstairs, and/or talk to the local assessor.
Any others? Jeff?
The sheriff's department accounts for the largest part of the levy. In the budget newsletter you sent out, there's a summary from each department but there's nothing from the sheriff's department. Was that in error?
No, we highlighted several departments each year, and this year was the ones that are in there, transportation, environmental.
The sheriff's department was highlighted last year.
Yep.
But you're absolutely right. That's the biggest mover. The two biggest things that have affected the sheriff's budget and primarily the corrections budget, operation of the jail, is up until about 3 years ago, our average daily population, we have a jail that holds 121, so it's full at 80% of that. And our average daily population of local in custody was 40-something. And so we were contracting out and renting out rooms to other counties, and we had about $400,000 a year in revenues from that. And then over COVID, it transitioned, and at some point, we had average daily populations of 80+, which is almost 100% full for us, of our local in custodies, so we had no income from rentals. Also, the increased average daily population meant the DOC came in and said we had to add additional staff. So we lost $400,000 in revenue, and we had to add $400,000 in staff to make that happen. That was reflected in last year's levy, and it's sustaining into this year. So that's the biggest, those are the two biggest things that have affected that.
I've lived through the building of the new law enforcement center in town here. And at that time, it was overbuilt, so the upper level was never utilized. And then different departments moved in there, $1 million was spent to renovate it. And now, not that long afterwards, we need more renovations and additions for the law enforcement center. So my concern is that when you are adding space and making plans, is that you do it right. And I, of course, have no knowledge of all that went into the decisions that were made, but I'd just like to encourage you to really use the dollars well.
Yeah, Jeff, that was one of the top things that I asked them in that, is that, you know, it was only 22 years ago that we made this, built a jail. We need to build something that's gonna last 50 years or more. But it was an old design. Maybe Jeff can explain it a little more. They got more areas of separation. I think this one only has 6, the next one's gonna have 18. And, you know, you need those areas of separation. You know, sometimes you got someone who's really wild, some people aren't so wild. Well, you gotta keep them separate from each other. Then you gotta separate them by sex and hope, you know, a lot of different things like that.
I think drugs have changed a lot.
Yeah, there's not a lot of.
The world is different than it was 24 years ago. The proposed project is, the change in the footprint is primarily to provide additional garage and sally port space. Right now, those doors are not fit that we can even get an ambulance in, and that doesn't make sense. That never made sense. But we're also storing a lot of stuff. So the primary change is the building of garage space and through space for traffic, and then sally port space, which is the intake space to keep people separate. Many people who come into, because of the mental health and the drug issues, many people come to the jail who really need to be in treatment, or who really need to be in a hospital, or who really need to be in another facility. We don't have adequate space to hold them, so they end up being held in a cell. And that doesn't help anybody. We're not adding more cells. As Commissioner Kruger mentioned, we are planning on remodeling the control points within the cell structures, so that we'll go from 6 control points to be able to have 13 lockdown different spaces, so that we'll have a lot more flexibility. Ideally then, our maximum population will go from about 80% of the number of beds, because of no flexibility, to about 90% of the actual beds, because we'll have increased flexibility. So some of this is just because the times have changed. Some of it is because, and the elements relative to the jails and the pods is what Commissioner Kruger's comment about old design was. About 2 years after this one was built, they were building with the design of way more flexibility. It was a trend. So I think I think we're relatively fortunate. Two things are gonna happen with this. We're looking at spending about $8 million instead of Itasca County's 80 million or Carleton County's 100 million. St. Cloud's looking at $250 million. Minnesota is one of the only states where the cost of jails is on the local taxpayer. That's the way that our system has been and is. It's good that we're looking at a remodel and a refit and a reuse of a perfectly good building. We're also timing it with the sense that those jail bonds are dropping off, and we're just continuing that. So the debt service payment isn't gonna go up, it's just gonna continue, which means it won't have an impact on the levy when it happens. So from a financing standpoint, it's a timing issue.
If you're looking at fine tuning what you have and making it more accessible and usable, that's one thing. But what are your projections for future jail capacity needs for the next 10 years?
And we'll be looking at that as well. The kickoff meeting with the consultant is gonna be Tuesday this coming week. We've got about a 5 or 6 month design phase. We will definitely verify that, but everything that we know and that they've run over the last year as they've been working with us in the big box drawings and turning this into a concept is that 121 beds is gonna serve us just fine. And I hope that's the case.
You know, I don't think there's a crystal ball there at all, you know. I don't think any of us would think crime in the state or in the country would be where it was at. I don't think we would, 4 years ago, I don't think any of us could have envisioned it would have escalated as much as it is. So you do the best you can to make those judgments, but we're in kind of weird times right now.
I heard a presentation by Sheriff Hawkins, not too long ago. He said, I think he said 85% of the inmates there are there on some kind of alcohol or drug abuse, primarily drug abuse. So, how can they have figured that, 20 years ago? I hope we don't see that increase even more 20 years from now.
Well, marijuana's just been legalized.
Well, in some entities, some government entities, the way they're dealing with that is they're just not putting them in jail.
Yeah.
Not so sure that's what we want.
That's not a good option either.
Sheriff was at the Minnesota Association of Townships for meeting a couple meetings back, and I found his presentation very helpful, so you're just, so that was very helpful.
Yes.
Can we go back to the slide about Hubbard County staffing history?
I don't think I had the staffing history in here.
Oh, maybe not.
I talked about the staffing history relative to the change in levy at this point.
Okay, well, it's on the website, so that's what's in my view.
Okay.
I can't remember how many years ago it was that you guys remodeled here.
2015.
Was it 2015? And one of the push for the remodeling was that you're gonna remodel the place so the areas to share employees, you wouldn't have to be hiring and all this and that. The big push for it. And I look at this chart and I'm, oh my God, in the past 10 years, more than 50 new employees have been hired here. What's going on? I mean, I don't know that I need that much more service. And it also, as you said earlier, it counts for a big chunk of the levy. So.
Yep.
When are we gonna stop the hiring?
So a significant portion of that change, Josh, when did we take over from DAC and doing recycling?
2018.
And how many staff did we add to be able to do that?
6.
I hate to put you on the spot, but
Around 6.
so, there's a big chunk just because we changed how we were doing services that didn't, as far as I understand, didn't end up really costing any more on your local tax levy. We've added 10 people in the sheriff's office, half in the sheriff's office and half in corrections in the last 3 years, primarily because of the change in population. We've had to add 10 over in social services because in the increase in number of caseload that they're dealing with. And that's super unfortunate. I think our Human Services Director said one day last week they had 22 child intakes, which is not a good deal, to have to go and intervene and have an interview with the family on behalf of the welfare of a child. But that happens in our community. Some other of the changes make a lot more sense when you break them down. Yes, if you look at that and say 200 people this many ago and now 260 proposed this year, that looks like a huge number, and you're not wrong. But this just last week, the board approved the combination of the recorder and the assessor's office downstairs to create a property records office instead of hiring an 11th person to support those two offices.
So when you're combining those two, are you saying that the staff number's staying the same?
Yes, we had 6 in the assessor's office, 4 in the recorder's office. The assessor's office was gonna request another person, and then the 2 department heads came to us and said, if we combine resources, we can get by with 10 and not have to ask for 11.
So it won't end up with a larger budget for that?
Nope.
particular area?
Nope, we're combining those 2 offices to be able to provide more efficient service. And we look for that every time we can.
And the other thing is, you guys are always buying some new dang program for these offices to use to do their business, then you turn around and hire some more people to run the thing. And I'm going, it's kind of backwards, isn't it? Purpose of getting that new modern electronic type stuff is to eliminate that person or persons or whatever you're doing to do this. To the general public, we're looking at this going, we can't run our business this way.
Yep.
But if you know, like I tell people, sometimes, you know, well, these guys just tax us, so they need the extra money and throw another tax on it. Yeah. But we've got to somehow take a look at these operations to streamline it better than keep adding, because it doesn't make sense when we the people look at this, the increase, and then we see more people being hired. An employee is an expensive department.
It absolutely is.
Nowadays, so you've got to look at that
Mhm.
and see, do we really need the extra? Now, like you said, that those people needed another person. In my mind, I'm looking at those departments going, gee, why would you need an extra person? I don't know of anything that tremendously has to take effect all of a sudden. That one person would have that much to do for 40 hours a week with the new, if you got updated systems.
Yep.
I'm just saying, when you look at the numbers.
I will tell you that the commissioners are as skeptical about new staff as any of you could be, and for good reason. The 2 primary drivers to need to add staff is that the volume of business has increased. Solid waste in the jail, social services. And the other reason that the number of staff required has increased has been regulation primarily from the state. I think we've seen those 2 things over and over. And you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. The state's a little nuts too, the way they do things, so coming from them, anything's a positive, you know, it's not gonna be right.
Yeah. We sat in a department head meeting back, I think in May, when all this, this 2024 budget cycle started, and we said, we don't want to see any increase in employees. Because we've hired quite a few over the years. And I think we're going to be netting only 3 in social services increase, and out of those 3, most of it is paid for by the state. Am I correct on that?
That's still the proposal, is the only thing left to approve are the 3 proposed staff and social services. I would add that one other big one, the attorney's office has doubled in size in that amount of time.
Yep. Those
And-
were approved
and that
last
is,
year.
that is due to caseload.
Yes.
I'd like to open a little discussion on our solid waste situation in Hubbard County. We've all seen pictures and information about them capping a large area off now, which they can no longer use, and they're running out of space, and they're looking for additional space, to put the burnables and the construction material and all that. I live kinda on the edge of Hubbard and Wadena County, and know a lot of people in Wadena County that love it. that they can come and dump in Hubbard County's solid waste site, which we all pay for on our taxes. And they don't have to pay. I've been coming up here for 60-some years. At one time, we got a card with our taxes that said we have the right to dump in the Hubbard County solid waste facility. And you had to have that card in order to dump there. Why, I guess the question is, why are we allowing all of these other people living in other counties to come and use our solid waste facility at no cost to them? And we have to pay for it.
We had this conversation on last week, if one of you wants to take that.
I will add a little, because I've had this conversation more than just last week. We've had this conversation since first got into office. The reality is that if you talk to most of our constituents out there, they will tell you that they really like the solid waste system the way it works, that it's very convenient, and really when you look at the value that you're getting for that convenience, they're happy. Generally, they're happy. So then you have to weigh, okay, how many staff is it gonna take to check everybody that's gonna come through this door? And what's that gonna cost? And you weigh that against how much of that you think is going on. And every time we do that, we go, no, leave it alone. Or we might ruin that value that you have and that convenience that you have by trying to fix that problem. I don't know that it's risen to the degree that we really wanna try and tackle it or need to tackle it. I don't think happens that often, that if we do mess with it and do something to try and fix it, we might make the constituents more upset.
Well,
Because it is
I
convenient.
live on Hubbard and Wadena, right on the border. Everybody on the Wadena side comes to Park Rapids because it's a much further drive for them to
So,
go to the Wadena side.
And not only that, we get summer residents that have cabins up here. I'll guarantee you they bring more stuff up here and get rid of it than they do down there sometimes too, because it's convenient.
I don't know, and every time I go there, I see plenty of yellow coats standing around.
But sir, there's a bigger issue to me, and that is if they actually were honest, they could stop in and pay.
Yes, they could.
They were gonna do that.
Yeah.
Well, I live on the other end, so I live close to Beltrami, and, you know, my understanding is that Hubbard and Beltrami have an agreement.
We do.
And I know that I have neighbors that, you know, sign up and pay that fee, and they dump, because they work in Bemidji, so they can do their,
It's convenient.
and personally, you know, I don't do that, because that's my 30 minutes every 10 days or whatever, that I can do whatever I want. I can listen to whatever radio station, I can go to the dump. So, anyway, is it possible to pursue, you know, that kind of a situation? And again, it takes a certain level of honesty too for people to sign up, but I know a number of people that live in Hubbard, sign up, they pay their, I think it's $35 it was, or some number like that, and they can dump their garbage in Beltrami.
And I'm sure that there's people and I'm from the northern part of the county, and I'm sure that there's people that go to Bemidji that live in Hubbard County that haven't done the right thing and signed up with Beltrami County, and they just dump their garbage there because it's convenient. So they're kind of like the Wadena residents, except for they're affecting Beltrami County, but.
The other thing that I heard at a MAP meeting a number of years ago is that since, because I was a cabin owner and got my card many years ago, but since the policies have been, I'll say, loosened up and whatever, the dumping in the woods and all that stuff has been much reduced.
That's a very good,
Good point.
good point.
Yep.
And I thought that made a lot of sense, because when it got, when it was easier instead of harder, people took it to the.
And it's-
landfill instead of
It's
throwing.
quite expensive to go clean the ditches up.
Yeah.
So I believe when the people in Wadena, they have to pay.
They should.
when
There's
they
an
go down.
there's an county fee, out-of-county
Yeah.
fee for, per instance, or they can buy an annual pass as well.
Yeah, so why wouldn't they drive this way and
Mhm.
dump in Hubbard? They don't have to pay anything.
Josh, do you have any idea how many out-of-county permits we sell annually?
It's not too many, I mean, it's probably.
Dozens or hundreds?
Yeah, in the dozens.
Okay.
And it's something, I mean, since I've been here, struggled with a solution for, and it's just, there hasn't been a perfect solution that seems like it could solve that issue.
Could you get like a sticker on your windshield, like they do at the state parks?
But then I just let you drive my car, or I give you my card. I mean, any one of those can be spoofed just as easily as not having a control method.
Just put a big sign up that says this area is being
Mhm.
monitored
My-
by camera.
My parents live in Wadena County. If they use my truck to go to dump, then it's okay. I mean,
Well, if it's your
they're,
garbage.
they're in an HOA, their garbage is paid for, they're not doing that, but it's that simple. If they brought their stuff up, took my truck to the transfer station with the sticker on it, how would we know? And nobody wants us to put, facial recognition in at the doors. Nobody wants that. I mean, that would probably work, but it would be really expensive to do, but it would probably work, but nobody wants that.
And we have, we do through the course of a week or a month or so, we do catch, people, and we, are able to get them to pay or get the annual permit, but, we know there's a lot that are still coming in, so.
I don't know, could we put a sign up at the front that simply says, out of county, need to pay, and sign up for your discounted annual fee,
There's no signage up there about an option to buy a permit, you just go in and.
Right in front of the main door, there's a sign that says all out-of-county residents must pay or see an attendant.
I'm wondering if there wouldn't be good to put one out by the road as well.
It's gotta be by the insurance company. $1,000 fine if you got.
Yeah, move the sign out by where you drive
You
in.
gotta pay legal fees.
We'd have to pass an ordinance that said it was a civil penalty to do that in order to charge $1,000, but
It's still the issue, people don't wanna be honest. It's a
Well,
moral
before you
issue.
raise my solid waste fee on my taxes, make sure you try to get some money from somebody else instead of raising our taxes all the time.
I know we had that conversation last week, and I know in 2.5 years I've been here, I've had it a dozen times, and if there was an easy way to do it, we would, and we continue to look for ways to do that. I know the staff are always looking for that and asking people. If somebody comes through with 2 bags of household garbage and goes through the quick lane, you're not terribly concerned. If somebody comes in with a truck pulling a trailer, that's the time when you have an opportunity to ask somebody.
And I can vouch for that, because I retired up here 10 years ago, and I bought a dump trailer.
Mhm.
And my dump trailer is our side of the lake community property, and I come rolling in there, I was landscaping and cleaning up, and the first thing, are you a commercial hauler? No. So now they know me, and, but, my neighbors use it and this and that, so, it goes in there and they recognize it. I think it's a great service you're providing. So I know that
Some entities' solution
does, but,
to that problem is to require everybody to have garbage service.
yeah.
And then when you do go in with extra stuff, they are watching and you are paying for what you're bringing in. But again, that's an inconvenience thing and people really like it the way it is.
I lived in other
Hard to
places where,
change that unless it really
Yeah.
gets out of hand.
I lived in other places where garbage service was close to $100 a month.
So did I.
I'm not complaining about the
Yep,
service.
no.
But that's what we're weighing.
I am
We're weighing the
complaining
problem you
about
brought up
us,
with the,
Hubbard County
quality.
residents paying for all and other residents getting it free. That's my problem.
Yep.
and we don't wanna ruin the quality of the service.
Like I said, I've been paying since 1963, and I've just seen those fees just, keep going and keep going and keep going. I understand that, but
I'm pretty sure in '78, we paid $14 to have an annual fee to go to the local dump.
when I started, it was 5.
And the other thing for me and a number of my neighbors, we stopped burning. rather than have a big fire and burn brush and some of that stuff, it's easier and cleaner and better for the neighborhood to load it on my dump trailer and haul it down there and they have a big fire.
Yep.
So,
Or compost, which a lot of people use.
yes, and I do compost too.
I remember the commissioners in the nineties grappling with the same thing and telling me that solid waste was gonna be one of their biggest headaches going forward. It is.
Okay, are there any other questions on the truth and taxation? Okay, then, we need a motion to adjourn, or?
We need a motion to adjourn and,
Okay,
yep.
somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Got it?